Welcome to Dear Tay, You Got This. This podcast is a weekly motivational love letter to those who are looking for a change, are currently going through a change, and they need just a little pick-me-up. Tay is a transformation and spiritual coach and author who understands that one small habit over 1 year can create a lifetime of growth. First, we will talk about our topic, and at the end of each episode, I will do a trinity. The trinity is a brag, gratitude, and desire. If you'd like to share your wins, questions, and trinity, please call or text 330-552-7234 to be featured on the podcast. I love hearing about your success and how you are transforming. To learn more about your host, visit her Instagram page, Phoenix of Change. In 2022, I decided that I wanted to be more consistent in my business. And one of the ways that I thought to do that was to grow my TikTok following. Now, at the time, I was making videos, but I didn't feel like they were reaching the audience that I was looking for. So what did I do? I needed to have a catch. So my catch was doing sock videos. And basically what that means is I got on TikTok every morning. I uploaded a video saying, hey, these are my socks for the day, my motivational speech, and then showed everyone my socks. Surprisingly enough, I ended up having over 230 plus pair of socks. And trust me, the collection is still extensive. Now, the 230 pairs grows every single day, every single week, every single month. But I can tell you that one of the places that I ended up getting socks from was Chakra Wonders. When I went on their website, not only did I see that they had socks, but I also saw that they had artwork, mugs, hats, and even some books. It is such a great place to go to, especially if you're looking for something that is going to... What I love about Chakra Wonders is that it's an organization that provides products and accessories to those interested in astrology, metaphysics, and self-healing practices. Their mission is to build a resort-style facility structured around modern and advanced holistic and naturopathic therapies for physical and spiritual healing. When you make a purchase, you are helping them build a holistic sanctuary for wellness and renewal. Go to chakrawonders.com and use coupon code DEARTAY to receive 15% off your purchase. That is chakrawonders.com. Chakra Wonders is an organization that provides products and accessories to those interested in astrology, metaphysics, and self-healing practices. Their mission is to build a resort-style facility structured around modern and advanced holistic and naturopathic therapies for physical and spiritual healing. When you make a purchase, you are helping them build a holistic sanctuary for wellness and renewal. Go to chakrawonders.com and use coupon code DEARTAY to receive 15% off your purchase. That's CHAKRAWONDERS.com. In April of 2023, I found a certification program called Mental Health First Aid. As a coach, I felt that it was important for me to learn ways to talk to people, especially if they are experiencing a mental health crisis. Working with people going through trauma could be a daily occurrence, and I wanted to be prepared. During the next couple of months, I will be doing a self-care series. I will be talking about the different types of self-care and how I use them during my first year of consistent healing practices. Note that your experience may be different and that I was not actively using these techniques at the beginning, but they grew into my life. Self-care is all about putting your oxygen mask on first to be able to help others. Self-care are the activities and practices that you engage in to help reduce stress and maintain your health and well-being. It is meant to refuel you, not deplete you. The areas of self-care that can help your overall well-being include intellectual, emotional, environmental, physical, spiritual, financial, community, and occupational. Hey guys, welcome back to Dear Tay, You Got This. This is like the fifth time that I've gone through recording, and it's because I just feel like it could be so much better. Uh, this week we are going back to our self-care series. And this week, we're talking about September self-care, and we're going to be going into intellectual and financial self-care. So at the beginning of this series, I talked about the different types of self-care. And really, the different types of self-care are things that you can do to help uplift your spirits, that make you feel better, that make you feel like the things in your life that you are doing are an accomplishment. And intellectual and financial self-care within the month of September last year were a really big deal for me because I found out a lot more about myself, where my financial security stood, and what I really like to do that made me think. So some things that you can count into intellectual self-care would be reading, learning, doing brain games, studying, and learning a new skill. Where financial self-care are things like organizing your finances, budgeting, saving, planning for your future, and creating security around your finances. These types of things within your self-care routine help you to understand where you're going in life and also what you're doing to create this specific type of security that you're looking for, especially when it comes to financial self-care and financial security. So a little bit of an overview of what happened last September. We're going to start with, I started writing my second book. Yes, people, if I haven't told you once, I've told you 1,000 times already, I am writing my second book. And it was all due to the conversation that I had had with my best friend, Candace, in August. And after we had that talk, a few weeks later, I was like, all right, we're just going to go ahead and do it. And on Labor Day weekend, I took my tent, I put it up in my backyard, and the whole entire weekend I spent outside, basically. Now, I will say caveats to this. I did go inside to take showers. I went inside every once in a while to take a break from the outdoors and watch some TV or listen to YouTube or do something like that. I did come into the house so that I could charge my laptop so that I could actually start writing my book. And I did come in, cook meals, and I did take those outside sometimes, but for the most part, everything else that I did do outside. So when I was writing my book, I did that outside. I took my painting outside. I had a couple of books outside as well. So I really made it a weekend where I could not only stimulate my mind for writing, but also to just be out in nature. Because in all honesty, I love being out in nature. And I had to figure out a way to do that and not really go anywhere because it was Labor Day weekend. I didn't make any plans before this. I was just like, I'm going to do a radio silent weekend and I'm going to sit in my backyard and I'm going to start writing my book. And that's exactly what I did. In September, I also took a vacation to Florida to go see my other best friend, Vanessa. And that was a very good time. I very much enjoy hanging out with my friends, making sure that my community is together. And this trip was actually special because I had stopped drinking at the beginning of the year. Her and her boyfriend actually found a non-alcoholic speakeasy out in Orlando. And it was amazing, guys. It was so great. And with that, I was reminded how amazing my friends are and how much they support the things that I'm going through. There was no pressure to drink. There was no, oh, you have to do this. It was literally, yo, I found this place. Bring something nice to wear. No, I'm not telling you what it is. I was like, okay. And then when we got there, it was this beautiful speakeasy where they had non-alcoholic spirits. It was amazing. And I was just really reminded how much I love my friends and how much they love me. And that was a really big deal for me going into, the end of the year. being sober for 8 months and going into this ninth month, knowing that I'm going on vacation and, my friends are going to want to have fun and all of that. And, knowing that they're not going to pressure me to drink, but also knowing that there probably wouldn't be a lot of activities that would allow me to be in that space. And they found somewhere where I could be myself and where I could still partake in alcoholic beverages without the alcohol. So that was really cool. One of the things that I did start working on during the month of September was my finances and my credit score. And the reason for this is that I really wanted to fix the things that were not secure within my financial world. And I talked about earlier in the year how I had actually read this journal. It's a money gratitude journal, and it has 30 days of prompts where you talk about money and how you feel about it and what it means to you. And at that point, I knew that I wasn't ready to start my financial security journey, like fixing my finances. And I thought maybe that wasn't going to happen until the year after. And it came as a shock to me, actually, that I actually started working on my finances because I realized how important it was for me to have that security, whether it was starting my 401k, moving my IRA into an account where I could actually put money into it, things like that. I realized for myself that it was a really big thing for me to be able to do this. So I personally was very happy that I started my financial journey or my financial self-care journey as quickly as I did. I should say quickly. But I know that a lot of the reasons why I started going into things a little bit earlier, whether it was relationships or finances or things that I thought weren't going to start until 2024, I very much contribute the fact that I stopped drinking and I was able to sit and really think about what it was that I wanted my life to look like. Now, I'm not telling everybody that stopping drinking will do this for you because I don't know you. I don't know how you handle life in general. But what I can say is for me, it helped me to really clear my mind, understand what I wanted in my life, understand who I wanted in my life, and how all of these things were going to have a domino effect in my life so that I could really start looking at the happiness that I wanted to create and the joy that I wanted to have in my life. I started a new art project and then I finished it. And I know that's very anticlimactic, but one of the things that I started doing was I started doing a lot of art and mostly painting. My medium is acrylics. And one of the things that I started doing was really jumping into different art projects. So in September, I started an art project, I finished it. And then at the beginning of 2024, I started another art project and finished that in February. So it's definitely been a progression of what my art is and what it does and how often I do it, but it's starting to really take shape and really take form. So I'm super excited about where that's going. And then all in all, in the month of September, I really just started to create new ideas. I think that the conversation with Candace really opened my mind to what it was that I was missing in my life and how that was going to progress forward. So what I want to do is really talk about the intellectual points that I started doing, or the intellectual self-care that I really started doing that really helped me to push what I'm doing now forward. But then also I want to talk about the financial portion. By no means am I a financial guru, and take everything that I say regarding finances with a grain of salt, because there are plenty of people out there who will give you advice on how to save money, what to do, things like that. But what I will say is that from August to September, I found someone on a podcast. I actually found them on TikTok, and they were talking about their finances and how they, pay for all their trips and how they, don't use debit cards and like all of these things. And I was just very fascinated by this person and what she was doing. And I listened to maybe one of her podcasts. Um, but what I ended up doing was I ended up seeing a lot more of her videos on TikTok. So really what I just was doing was like scrolling through her videos on TikTok and learning a little bit more about different things. And it was nice because I could really see how maybe, I wasn't going to be, saving up $10,000 from my regular funds in the next 6 months. But at least what I could do is I could start raising my credit score. I could start saving money. I could start building wealth. And that was something that I was looking forward to when it came to financial self-care. Again, it just came a little bit earlier than what I intended, but what matters is that the time for it to come was definitely right for my life. And I'm very happy now that I started doing that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get started and talk about intellectual self-care. So what I really started doing was the first thing that I started doing was really, I wanted to put all of my experiences down in writing. So for all of 2023, I have 4 journals. 3 of them are from 2023. And I literally wrote almost every day for a year. And I say almost every day because there were a couple of months where I actually stopped writing because I was too overwhelmed with life. I was too overwhelmed with my breakup. I had all of these big emotions and I didn't want to write them down because I felt like I couldn't write them down. Sometimes I have this thing where I have all of these thoughts floating around in my brain and I cannot write them down as fast as I can type them. And because I was trying to stay focused on using one journal, one type of journal for the year, instead of writing it down or putting it, typing it up or anything like that, I literally just didn't do it. And it was really just because I couldn't concentrate enough to really get my thoughts in order. So what that really led to was me really sitting back, meditating more, thinking about what I was doing and really bringing myself back to center. But when it came down to what my book was going to be about, I really wasn't entirely sure. Talking with my best friend didn't really open a whole lot of doors for what it was that I could write about. But I knew that my first book was about overcoming trauma. My second book wasn't going to be about overcoming trauma, but I was like, well, it has to be about something else. And I just knew that it was going to probably be about the transformation that I had went through over the year. So I actually have this book and it's called How to Sell a Book. I think it's what it's called. What is that book called? It's How Write a Sellable Book in 10-minute bursts, or something of that nature. And I had bought this book before I published my last book because I wanted to refine the book that I had already had. But by the time I wanted to refine the other book, I was already so over it because it had been 6 years that I had been writing this book. I was already over it. So by the time I got this book, read through it and realized, oh, I have to go back through my book and write 2 more drafts. I was like, fuck that. We're not doing that. So what I ended up doing instead was I just went ahead and published that book. And I was like, I will do a second edition later on down the road, but I just cannot deal with it right now. And then I decided to go ahead and use it for the next book that I was going to write. So what I did that Labor Day weekend was I took this book, I read through the first few chapters, which tells you exactly like how to start your book. And that's exactly what I did. In one weekend, I was able to put down an outline to my book. And I think by the end of the weekend, I probably had like 20 pages of my book already written, which I thought was actually pretty amazing, considering that it took me 6 years to write my first book. And I don't want you to get it twisted. There are an endless amount of people who are like, it took me 20 years to get my first manuscript. There are some people who are like, I threw my manuscript together in a weekend. And that's okay. But for me, it took 6 years. I put everything down At one point, I was like, oh, I'm going to change it and this is what it's going to look like. And then after that, I was just like, I'm over it. I've read this book a million times. I'm done with it. I don't want to look at it anymore. So I just published it. I was just like, it is what it is. I'll write a second edition, which after doing the process of the second book made me realize that I really do want to do a second edition. So stay tuned for that. But because of that, I decided, like, how was I going to put this book together? And I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like. I didn't know what I wanted to talk about, really. I just knew that I had gone through so much growth from stopping drinking that I was like, okay, let's go ahead and start there and figure out the rest. And that's basically what I did when it came down to writing my book. Now, I by no means, again, do not do coaching in the area of writing books. I can only tell you what I did, what I used, how that worked out for me. And what I can tell you is that I am now on my third draft, which is almost finished. I have like 3 more chapters to edit. And once I'm done editing those chapters, I'm going to have beta readers. But I can tell you that this process has been so eye-opening because it really does make you look at the things that you're writing about, the lessons that you want to teach other people. And it really helps you to put those into a nice little package, which is super cool. Another thing that I did was during that time is I started a new chapter in my business. And basically what happened was I decided that there was a shift. So in 2022, in the summer of 2022, I did my summit and it went well. The summit went really well, but I felt off after that, which is where we come to August of 2023, where I'm talking to my best friend. I'm like, I feel so misaligned. And what not drinking and what really focusing on my business allowed me to do during that time was really look at what it was that I wanted to portray to my audience, to the people that I wanted to coach, and what that was supposed to look like. So I really sat down and thought about what that looked like. And what it did was it sparked all of these creative ideas in me of what my business actually looks like, what it doesn't look like, the things that I'm missing, the things that I forgot to do, stuff like that. And it really started to take form and take shape. So when I started writing my second book and I realized that this book was really about transformation and spirituality and how I basically found myself, I was like, oh, that's something that I can do. Because if I tell you about all of the times that I've talked to friends and family and people who just, randomly out in the universe, and one of the things that they often say about me when they're talking to other people is that I'm super authentic to myself, and I hold no punches when it comes to letting people know how things are. I would definitely say that I'm an emotional being. I'm not really all of that logic thinking. But when it comes to certain things, there's just a point in people's lives where they have to sit down and take a breath, and then they have to move. And what I realized about myself was I was really good at moving. My best friend always tells me, like, if there's one thing that you're good at, it's you're good at transforming. You're good at transitioning. And for a long time, I thought that was a bad thing because I was like, well, that just means that my life is in a constant state of change. And what the hell am I doing with myself? But in reality, it means that I'm very adaptable. I can really adapt to the situations that are coming in my life and that are coming at me at different speeds. Yes, there is a stage of overwhelm that happens because sometimes I have to sit back and I go, all right, what are we doing today? And focus on that one thing, because I am one of those people, when I get into this place of expansion, I really like to put all of my hands in the cookie jars and do everything at once. And I started to realize over time, especially with the different times that I've had burnouts and the different times that I've had like the paralyzing overwhelm, that I understand that things are happening and that I want to get to the future and that I want to see what's going to happen with the things that I do. But first we have to do them. We have to do them first. I can sit and I can dream and I can, see this wondrous plan of what my life looks like. But first, I have to take it down a few notches, I have to come back, and then I have to set the steps in place. And that's what helped me to figure out what my new business was going to be and how I was going to take that from what my last business was further. And in all honesty, I was scared because I was like, well, who am I to do this? At first it was really like, who am I to do this trauma release stuff? Like, I thought that I knew what I was talking about. I knew what I was talking about. And then I get on these calls and I talk with 20 different coaches, and they're all doing something different in the realm of trauma and helping people. And I just felt so out of place. And then as I started coming into the realm of transformation and spirituality, I realized that that is the place where I feel the most comfortable. So why not start doing stuff in that realm? And I realized that a lot of the things that I had been doing in my life had already led me to this point. Like, there was a realization that I had one day, and I know it was sometime last year. And I remember being so freaking stoked about this because all of the certificates that I have, I'm not talking about my degrees, I'm talking about the certificates that I decided that I was going to get over the last 6 years, all led me to being a mind, body, and soul coach. So what I thought was super cool was that last year in April, I went and did my mental health first aid certificate, my certification. So I am a mental health first aider. Then in 2021, I believe is the year that I became a Reiki master, which was the soul part of the mind, body, and soul. And then probably about 6 years ago, and I think I just had a timeline thing like come up and be like, yes, this happened. And maybe it's a little more than that, but a little, like maybe 6 years ago, I became a pole fitness instructor. And that was the body part. And I thought that was super cool because I was like, yo, like everything that I've done within my life has taught me something about not only myself, but about how to help other people. And no, at this moment, I don't do pole fitness classes anymore, although I absolutely love them. And the goal is eventually to open up my own studio so that I can do my meditation workshops and the chakra alignment workshops and things like that, so that people can actually have this full mind, body, and soul experience. And that is my goal eventually, to have that. Now, I don't know if that's going to come tomorrow, if that's going to come 10 years from now. I have no idea. But that is the ultimate goal, is to open up this place where I can put all of the things that I've learned in the mind, body, soul connection and put that into a place that helps other people see that within themselves and help them to create happiness and all of the other wonderful things that come with feeling complete and whole. And I think during the time of learning about intellectual self-care, I realized that this was something that was very big for me, because not only was I learning how to build my personal business, but I was also learning what it was that I needed to continue to stay stimulated, to continue to care for my mind health, my body health, my soul health. So it was very nice to be able to sit back and look at all of the accomplishments that I've had and then take those accomplishments and make them into something. So I'm very excited, very proud of myself for continuing on instead of just being like, all right, this trauma release stuff isn't for me, I'm going to go ahead and stop that. Right? I know for myself, and there's not a lot of people out there like this, but I know for myself, it's not easy for me to just do one thing. But when it comes down to something that I'm super passionate about, which is helping people find joy and find happiness, I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that I help them do that. And that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast as well, because I thought that it was a very good way to let people know, like, hey, you may be in a shit show of a life right now, but if you change one thing, and you stay consistent with that change, you'll start to see other things change around you. And it's all about taking action. And that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing the self-care series. Because what I see most of the time is that people are doing self-care, but the self-care is more of an afterthought than it is an actual practice. And I have to say that I'm only human. So sometimes I also have to remind myself to schedule in self-care. So this series, the self-care series, like once it's done, it's not over, because I'm going to continue to give you guys tips and tricks on how to find joy and how to bring peace into your house. But at the same time, you have to remember that self-care is what's going to help you get there. You have to be able to go into these different areas of self-care, bring out the best in those areas, and really focus on how those things bring you joy, how they bring you happiness. But one of the important things is schedule it. Schedule the time to give yourself that self-care. All right. Now, one of the last things that I started doing was I started creating more art, and I started using my hands more. When I was growing up, I actually used to want to be a mechanic because I really liked the idea of like being able to build something, fix something, do all these things with my hands. I thought that was freaking amazing. So it's no wonder that while I was with my ex, we did like Lego projects and different spatial things and like little spatial puzzles and things like that, because that's one of the things that really helps me to grow more as a person and as an intellectual being. So one of the things that I started doing was I started to do more art. And it was very interesting that some of the art pieces that I have, they're mostly around my house, and people will come over and I'm like, oh, that's neat, da, 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 da. And like, I've given away quite a bit of art. But being able to sit down and really build on those skills was something that I really wanted to do. I have to constantly remind myself that art is not about perfection. It's not about perfection. It's about a vision that you see in your mind and what that looks like, how that creation comes to life and elicits an emotion out of someone. And I'm reminded of that every time I go to the art museum. I go to the art museum, I walk around, see all the art, and I'm just like, some of my paintings, I'm like, oh man, I wish that this was more lifelike. But I have to realize that I haven't practiced as much as I could to make certain things lifelike. But at the same time, does lifelike make it art? It doesn't, right? So it was really nice to be able to get out of my brain about what art really was to me and be able to just literally go, okay, I want to create something that elicits the emotion of happiness and be able to put that on paper. And as we're speaking right now, I'm looking at a painting in my office where I'm like, I hadn't finished that yet. It's right now you can tell that it's just a pot. And it's supposed to be a flowers. And I literally just got this like thought of what I want this painting to look like. So I think after I get done, I might actually get started on that so I can not lose the idea. But yeah, so there's that. That's just a little bit into that brain. But that was like the intellectual self-care where I actually sat back and I thought about what are the things that I like to do that make me feel happy and healthy within my mind. One of the things that I do wish that I could do, and this is just a random side note, like one of the things that I wish that I could do more is read. However, I am a paralegal during the day and all I do is read. So sometimes I just don't want to read. But I have found books that I am interested in reading because they have nothing to do with anything. Like they're just like the fantasy worlds of fantasy. And then of course, every once in a while I'll throw in a self-help book here and there. So yeah, that's just a little random tidbit for you, but I digress. Um, so the next thing that I'm going to talk about is financial self-care. And the really cool thing about this, like I stated, is that I literally started at the beginning of the year. I think it was like, I'm going to say that I probably did it in April. I remember that I had the money journal and I was kind of just like really like, I need to get rid of some of the blocks that I have around my life in general. And finances has always been a big one for me. Now, have I saved money before? Yes. Do I have an IRA? Yes. Do I have a savings account? I do. Um, but there's always been like this like mindset around money and how I use it or how I've wasted it or the things that I want to do but can't. So there's always been this mindset around money and what that looks like, what that feels like to me. And it's very interesting because for me, it was like, okay, let's figure out exactly what I need to do financially to make my situation better. Because I had things that I wanted to do. I wanted to pay off debt. I wanted to save money to go on trips. I wanted to just save money for retirement. There were these things that I wanted to do, and I was just like, well, how can I do these things if I don't have the means? So I did the money journal, the gratitude money journal at the beginning of the year. And what I did was I decided that I needed to make a plan. So previously, before that, I was a sexual health consultant. And during that time, we always had different talks about money and things like that. And one year they had, I can't remember his name. He wrote The Automatic Millionaire. He came and did a talk at one of the conferences. And I read his book and I looked over and I was like, okay, these are the things that I want to do. So how can I do this? So I went ahead and like figured that out. This is how you do this. This is what you're supposed to do, blah, 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 right? And I was like, all right, so we're gonna go ahead and make a plan. So what was it that I wanted to do? I wanted to start having a savings. I wanted an emergency fund because I felt like sometimes emergencies happen and I didn't have the money to do so. I wanted to start budgeting so that I could actually save more. And I also wanted to be more in control of my finances. I don't know how many of you right now are living paycheck to paycheck. If you are, go ahead and give me a right? Yeah, right. Um, but there's a way to start getting out of that cycle. And it really has a lot to do with looking at the things that we spend money on, not really pinching our pennies to like the T, but also making sure that the things that we're spending money on are what we want and desire and that are going to give us like at the after 2 years of having this thing, it's still going to bring us joy. All right. Um, and then what I did was I went ahead and started to put that plan that I had together into action. So this person that I had found on TikTok, she was talking about how she made her first 100K. And her name is Tori. And she basically was talking about all of these different things, getting a high yield savings account, having a 401k, how you can save money within your budgeting. And she has how to invest, like all of these different things. And one of the things that actually caught my eye was the fact that she was going on all these trips and she wasn't really paying a whole lot of money for it because she was using rewards. And I was like, what do you mean you're using rewards? And it was because she was saying, like, I don't use a debit card to pay for anything. I use my credit card. If I'm able to use my credit card, I use my credit card. And it's because she gets rewards and she builds up those rewards and you get cash back and you can use that cash back for things, which I was like, that's awesome. So I started putting together a plan. At this time, my credit had gotten a lot better. It was very much shit. Um, quite a few years ago, because my mortgage was behind when me and my ex-husband were together, and the mortgage is only in my name. So my credit was the only one that was affected, and my credit took a complete deep dive. Um, and I was not really happy about it. But once I was able to get back on track, I basically started just like doing the regular things, like, paying on time, making sure I didn't have any debt, this, that, and the other. The only card that I had was a Firestone credit card. And for those of you guys who don't know what Firestone is, it is a auto care place. You take your car in to go get tuned up and checked and all of these things. And so what I ended up doing was I was like, okay, well, my first goal, of course, is to see if I can get a credit card. And at this time, I think at the time that I did that, my credit score was, above 600. Might even been close to 700. And I was just like, all right, let's go ahead and do this because I want to go ahead and start, getting my credit together. And at the same time, I was looking at like all of the, I don't really know. I'm telling you guys this, and I don't really know how to read like credit scores and things like that. I just go by whatever Credit Karma tells me. And it's like, you have all of your hard inquiries, which is where people check your credit. So usually when you go to a car dealership, when you apply for a credit card, things like that, they put a hit on your credit to show that somebody's checking it, basically. And when you have too many of those, they can bring your score down. When you don't pay your bills on time, it brings your score down. And it depends on the bills, of course, because not everything is included in that. But depending on the bills, if you're paying those on time, it'll bring your score up. If you're not paying on time, it will take it down. And then there's a whole lot of other things that go into this FICO score system, right? So I decided, I was like, well, my credit score is pretty good. I think that I can get a good credit card. So I did. I went and got me a credit card, and I was like, all right. Now, listening to Tori, she was like, listen, you use the credit card, but you don't overspend. And I was like, I got this. Because by this time, in March, April, when I decided to do this money journal, I had started doing it because I kept overspending. And it really upset me, actually, because I was like, this is wild. Like, why does this keep happening? So I was like, well, let's go ahead and figure out where these blocks are and where these blocks are coming from. So once I got all of that stuff together, I went ahead and was like, all right, we're good. We haven't overdrafted our account in months. Like, we're doing really good. Like, I believe that we can go ahead and do this. And that's exactly what I did. I got me a credit card. I started building up rewards. And by Christmas, I was able to buy like my office chair, which by the way, I'm not sitting in. But I was able to buy my office chair with rewards because I could use them on Amazon. And I was like, yes, this is absolutely wonderful, where you can get trips and concert tickets and dinner experiences and chairs from Amazon with your cash back. Now, what I will say is that there are a lot of different people out there who will tell you to do different things. I'm not telling you to do anything other than like anyone else, but I'm just saying what I did. The first thing that I did was I went ahead and got together an emergency fund. At the time, it was $2,000. I put $2,000 in my account, and I was like, all right, now we're going to start paying off debt. And I started paying off debt. I got my credit card, and I started using that and paying that off and doing all this stuff. And my credit score shot right up. And I started to see the benefits of what that looks like. Now, yes, I have a better credit score than I had 4 freaking years ago, because 4 years ago, again, it was down in the dumps. I have a better credit score now, but to be honest, I'm not using it for anything. And the reason why is because I already have my house. I already have a car. So I don't need my credit score for anything right now. But does that mean that I don't want it to be good? Absolutely not. So we're working on ways to make that better. But within that, we're also putting money into our 401k. I'm not putting anything in my IRA at the moment, but I am making sure that I have an emergency fund. Once my emergency fund is all set, I'm going to go ahead and start paying off some more debt. And that's basically the cycle that I have been doing. Now, if you want specifics on that, I guess I can do something, but I would prefer that you didn't like listen to me on the financial part. And I only say like in the specifics of finances because that's not me. I'm not a financial person. I basically just, I know how to save. I know how to budget. I know how to look at the things that I have and go, okay, what's needed and what's not needed, and then go from there. I have really good impulse control on some things. When it comes to spending money, I definitely have really good impulse control because I think about it first, which is kind of hard right now because it's Halloween. Look, it's spooky season, and they have all of the Nightmare Before Christmas things, and I am obsessed. So when I go somewhere and I see Nightmare Before Christmas, I'm like, oh God, it's Nightmare Before Christmas. And then I take a picture of it, I send it to my boyfriend, and then I walk away. Because I'm like, yeah, we know we don't need that. And he's very encouraging too, like, baby, it's okay. I understand. Just walk away. But it's because I have a bigger vision for myself. And uh in no time, I will be able to just be like, oh, I see this thing, I want to get it. And it's because I've worked my way up to that to where I can. Right now, I am not in that space to be able to do that, and that's okay. I am working on it, and it will be here in no time because I continue to work the plan. I continue to work the system that I have put into place for myself when it comes to my finances. And then what I did was I also, within all of this and building my finances, building my credit score and things like that, I literally had to think about what financial freedom looked like to me. And I feel like that's super important. I'm about to be 38 in a month. Look, a month from the day that I am recording this, I am going to be 38. And I feel like there was so much that I had missed out on when it came to like finances. Like I could have had like a great like 401k. My IRA could have, a couple 100,000 in it if I had done things or if I had known things previously. And the one thing that I've decided in my life for many years at this point is that I can't live in the what if section of my life because that's not going to do anything but put me into this major spiral of, oh my God, my life sucks. I could have done better here. I could have done better here. Da, 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 da. And this is actually in the money journal. And basically, the money journal and one of the sections, it's like, what is something that you bought that you knew you probably shouldn't have, but it brought you joy? What's something that you spent money on that you wish that you hadn't? And it like talks about these things, but then what it does is it frames it so that you look at these things that you've previously bought, these decisions that you previously made, and you're like, okay, at the time that I made this decision, it was the right decision for that time. So it wasn't a waste. We just make better choices now. And I can say that that happened quite a bit when it came to money for me. It was like I had money, so I was like, oh, I can just spend it or whatever. Or if I had like a debt come up and I had to like get rid of it fast, I would dip into my IRA or something like that and take that money. And that would like, for me, that would like really like, oh, that really kind of sucks actually that I had to do that. But I look at it now as it was a necessary thing for me to be where I am now. And it happens. Like I literally, just like most people, I've done things in my life in general, not just financially, but like personally, relationship wise, like work wise, where I was like, ooh, I shouldn't have done that. But now I look at myself and I'm like, all right, we're better than we were 10 years ago when we did that thing. So we're just not going to make those same mistakes. And that's basically when it comes down to transforming and healing and understanding your self-care needs is really understanding that we cannot change anything that happened 5 years ago. We can't change anything that happened 3 years ago. We can't change anything that happened a month ago, nor can we change anything that happened yesterday. We can't. We cannot change those things. The only thing that we can do is learn from it, take action the next day to prevent that same thing from happening, and moving forward, growing from that point, and knowing that every action that you now take is something that you will think about tomorrow. So it's interesting to hear myself actually say that because I remember there were times where I would sit and I would ruminate on my past and the things that I had done in past relationships or things that I had said in past conversations that I was like, that's cringy, or anything. And I realized like I can't change it. The only thing that I can do is be better tomorrow. All I can do is take accountability for what I've done, how it's created the life that I have now, if it's even gone that far, right? Because sometimes the shit that we did yesterday doesn't really matter 3 years from now. It's just, I did it. Damn it, right? Or it was something minuscule that really doesn't have a change effect. And I look at those things now and I'm like, okay, I don't look at every day. I look at every day as more of an opportunity. I do not look at it as, I fucked up yesterday. Let me go ahead and make it better today, right? I look at it as an opportunity to really, Tigress has come to join the show. Hello, baby. I look at it as an opportunity to really sit back and look at my life and understand like the changes that I want to make, and how I'm going to continue forward making those changes. So don't dwell too much on the past and the things that you've done. Sometimes some of those things can't be fixed, and that is okay as well. But what we have to do is we have to look forward and say, all right, what are the things that I'm willing to change now that are going to make this particular piece of my life better? When I first started this healing journey, I was like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and stop drinking for 90 days. I had no idea how it was going to make my life better. I had no idea what changes were going to be made. I literally had no idea. I was just like, this sounds like a good idea. This meme said, and it's so funny because this happened beginning of last year. And I found this meme like November of 22. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm definitely going to do this. And I didn't even take a picture of this meme. I was just like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I've never been able to find this meme since. Like, never been able to find this meme since. Like, it probably doesn't even exist. It exists in the world that I was in then. But I decided to stop drinking. And literally the meme was just like, see if you need it. That's it. It's like, see if you need it. And I was like, I have no idea what the fuck that means, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway because, sure, things right now aren't going great. I'm going to go ahead and stop drinking. Oh, yeah, I'm also going to start getting up early. Let's just go ahead and throw all the things at the wall, right? And as I stopped drinking and I started to really come into myself and learning more about myself through journaling, through talking with my friends, through going to NET therapy, I realized for myself that there was so much baggage and previous shit that I was holding on to that I just wouldn't let go because I was drinking it away. And I was shoving it deep down into the crevices of my soul and just letting it fester. And I was like, you know what? We're not going to do that anymore. And it's the same thing when it comes down to your past. Don't continue to let all of that stuff, all of that guilt and negativity and things that you did that you're just like, oh, this fucked up my life. Do not let that stuff fester so much that it continues to lead your life into disarray, where it makes you sick, where it makes you sad, where it just causes a whole bunch of calamity. Realize that the things that you did then are things that you did then. You are older now, you are wiser now, and now you can do something else. You can do something different. So whether it's, and this is a really good example. When I first started as a paralegal, I was working at a job where I was making like $17 an hour. When I became a paralegal and I was getting ready to do my externship, I couldn't do it at the job that I was at because they didn't have any paralegal positions available. So I ended up taking a major pay cut, like a $6 pay cut, to go work somewhere else. And I worked there for a couple of years. That led me to working at the prosecutor's office, which led me to working in a family law office, which led me to working in workers' compensation, which led me to working where I am now. But all of that time that I had, like at first, when I like took that job and I was like, oh, I just took this pay cut. I was like, well, now we have to do something about that. So I started working towards like being a better paralegal, doing the job properly, all of this. And then I was like, all right, now we're on to other things. And I ended up at the prosecutor's office, which by the way, I have to say is not, I don't think that's an easy thing to do, but for me, it was one of those things where I was like, definitely have to do this. This is something that is important. And it was something that was going to help further my career. So I was like, we're doing it. We got this. And I went to that interview and I do not regret any of the decisions that I made during the time of me going into that interview. I don't regret any of that. Don't regret not a goddamn thing. Because I was miserable at the place where the place that I went to, that I took the pay cut, I was miserable there. So all of the steps that I took, I was like, all right, this is kind of shitty, but I don't care. And I went for it and I got it. And it's the same thing with everything that you're doing now. We are all in a position now where we can change every single thing that we're doing. Maybe you cannot get a new job tomorrow, but maybe you can. All right. You have to be able to put yourself in the positions to do the things that you are looking forward to doing. So when I stopped drinking and I knew I was angry at my job and I knew I just wanted to get out of there, but I was like, I need to change my perspective on this whole thing. And that's exactly what happened. For 4 months, I was like changing my process and changing my brain waves and changing, my mind about what this actually looked like. And then one day I just put my resume up on Indeed. Somebody found it and was like, hey, I think you're a great fit for this. And then I went, hey, yes, I am a great fit for this. And they were like, all right, you're hired. And it took, I think, from the time that they found me to the time that I was hired, it took a week and a half. A week and a half. So you can't tell me that it's not possible. You have to make up your mind that that is what you're going to do, and you have to go after it. Whether it be a new job, whether it be a new relationship, whether it be anything, you decide that you want to start painting. All right, let's go ahead and make the steps to start painting. Are you going to take some art classes? Are you going to just go outside and like draw the trees? Like, what are you going to do? Because you can't tell me that you want to make change in your life and not take any action. And that's the whole point of this self-care series. I want you to see that there are different areas in your life that you can focus on to help you to become more happy, that can help you become more mindful, that help you become more physically fit so that you can run that half marathon or run the Spartan or the Tough Mudder. Whatever that physical activity may be leading to. And it might not lead to anything. You might just want to be healthier. Hell, I remember at one time I felt like I was getting winded walking up my stairs. And I was like, oh, no. We got to fix this. So what did I do? I started running. I started walking more often because I was like, no, we're getting a little sluggish here. Let's do something else. Let's make a change. All right. I have a friend who decided that she wanted to stop smoking, all smoking. She didn't want to smoke vapes anymore. So what did she do? She went out and bought this like little tiny tube whistle thing. And she uses that when she wants to smoke. She'll just take it and suck down it and then go on about her business. And the tube doesn't have anything in it. It's just like, it literally is like a metal tube. It looks like a little whistle. Doesn't make any sound or anything. But she uses that as her way of coping with not smoking. There are so many different ways out there that you can transform your life, and a lot of us are just not taking action on it. A lot of us are not taking accountability for the things that we've done and saying, hey, yeah, you fucked up. Let's do better tomorrow. And that's literally all you have to do when it comes down to making changes, transforming your life, going through transitions, everything. It's like, okay, a change is happening. Have a fit if you need to for a day. Some people have a fit for a week. All right? Go ahead and have that fit. Have those emotions. And then at the end of that little trek, go, all right, pull up your big girl panties, pull up your big boy panties, pull up your big non-binary panties, right? And go. Take that step, take that walk, and go in the direction that you want to go. The only person that's stopping you from going somewhere is you. It is the idea that you have that you are not able to accomplish that thing. In September, I did not know what I was going to be doing, regardless of what the universe had planned. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But I was like, let's go ahead and move forward with this. I had no idea what this book was going to be. And here I am a year later, not 6 years later, but a year later, on my third draft, getting ready to have beta readers so that I can have somebody edit my book. Like, I could not have even imagined that it would only take me a year to get to where I am right now with this book. Or with my business in general. But it happened. But it's only because I took action. And it wasn't like calculated action either. Sometimes it was calculated action, but a lot of times it wasn't. Like starting my financial self-care journey, I was like, I just threw spaghetti on the wall. I was like, yeah, no, we're gonna do this and see how that works out. Like, and sometimes it takes that. It's almost like having the courage to really just like break out of that little box that we have already put ourselves in that says we can't change. The things that we've done in our lives don't matter. And like whatever other freaking random ass story that we're telling ourselves, right? So yeah, basically like I do the self-care series because what I want you to do as always is take one thing, just one thing. Make a plan and do it. That's it. Plan doesn't have to be complicated. It can be 3 steps. So this week I want you to look at your intellectual self-care. What is it that you can do that's going to stimulate your mind, that's going to make you happy? Is that doing a puzzle? Do it. Right? Is that taking 10 minutes out of the day to read your favorite book? Do it. Whatever it is. And it's the same thing with financial self-care. What are some things that can make you look at your finances a little bit differently so that you can start that wellness around money? Because let's just be real, some of us have this like block around money. Not everybody, but some of us, right? What can you do to make your financial self-care, your financial wellness better? Right? Have you been putting off stuff? I had been putting off calling people about my insurance, home insurance and auto insurance. And I went ahead and was like, all right, this thing happened, something happened, and I was like, I have to go and do this thing now. But what that did was it prompted me to do other things too. So I went and got my eyes checked, which I had been putting off for months, by the way. Has nothing to do with financial or intellectual self-care, right? But I was like, I stopped. I was just like, oh, I forgot. And then I started getting all of this other stuff together, and I was like, you know what? It's time. Let's go get the eyes checked, right? It's just like, let's go to the dentist. Let's go to the doctor. Whatever it is, like create a plan, take the action. I swear you'll thank me. Like honestly, like I can say that a lot of the changes that I went through over the last year and a half, I really contribute to taking action. Because you can't move forward if you're standing still. You can't move forward if you're standing still. So before I get off here, of course, as always, we're going to go ahead and do a Trinity. And a Trinity, for those of you guys who are just joining in on this podcast, are something that you're grateful for, something that you want to brag about, and a desire that you have. And this is all about you, all right? So first thing, something that I am grateful for. I am grateful for the ability to touch the people in my life. I am so grateful that I get to do this podcast. there could only be 5 people listening, and somebody is going to find a nugget that's going to help them in their life. They're gonna be like, oh, yes. And then they're going to share it with somebody else. And that is one of the reasons why I do what I do. When I was doing trauma release coaching, that's one of the reasons why I did that, because I was like, I get to help people overcome their trauma. And now I'm in a space where I'm like, oh, I get to help people find their happiness. Which for me, I don't know about you, but that sounds a little bit better, right? Like, we get to actually find our happiness, our true joy in life. Like, we get to do that. And I get to help in whatever little way that I can. This is why I do workshops. This is why I do speeches and go to retreats and talk to other people. And it's really the reason why I do what I do, because I get to touch a person. I get to touch their heart. I get to help them understand why it's so important to move forward in your lives and understand that this bubble that we created around the mistakes that we've made, it doesn't even fucking exist. Like, just take those mistakes and like, we did it. All right, let's do better tomorrow. And I get to tell people that. And then they're like, yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So I'm grateful that that I have the voice to speak to others, to tell them what transformation looks like, how that feels. When I tell you, like, after the self-care series and we go into all this other stuff, like, you're gonna be like, I'm sorry, healing is what? Because literally, like, it's not always a cakewalk. It isn't. It's not always a cakewalk. And that's okay. That's okay. I don't expect life to be a cakewalk all the time. But it can be. It can be. Oh, something that I'm going to brag about. I actually like this. I have someone in my life who also puts in the work. When I first, well, we'll put it this way. I've been dating and obviously I've been married and all of that stuff for years. And before my last relationship ended, I had met my boyfriend. We had met on Bumble. And when we met, it wasn't supposed to be anything. It was really just like he was looking for somebody, he was just looking for a friend. I was just here. We both were, I was poly, he was in an open situation. He was in an open relationship, not a situation. He was in an open relationship. And we just started talking, and over time I really got to know him and understand who he was and really enjoyed him as a person, as an individual. And I remember I had just had me and my ex had went out, and while we were out, I can't remember what happened. I'm pretty sure I got over emotional about something that she said, and I'm pretty sure it was my fault. And I got really, really upset. And we ended up leaving, and she was supposed to be coming over to my house, and we ended up leaving. And I called my best friend, Vanessa, who lives in Miami, and I was talking to her about the situation. And I was just like, I'm so fed up with all of that. Like, whatever that situation, I can't even remember. Like, I feel like that was literally like 2 years ago. So I don't even remember what that situation was. But I just remember being like, I don't like this. Like, I don't like feeling like I'm not a priority in somebody's life. Understanding that everybody is their own priority. I get it. But I didn't feel like I was a priority in her life. And I was talking to my friend about that, and she was like, you know what, Tay? She said, I have always wanted somebody for you who was going to love you like you love them. And she was like, I don't think that this is the situation for you. And she was like, but I support you if you decide to continue to move forward with it. She was like, but she was like, you are so kind, so caring, so wonderful that anybody would be happy to have you. She was like, and I've always wanted that for you. And I remember getting off the phone with her and, tears and everything. And I remember calling my now boyfriend and talking to him. And I was like, we were talking and I was telling him about the situation. I was like, look, and we had at this point, we weren't even like, we weren't actually dating at this point. We were just talking, hanging out, going on dates, just being great. But we weren't actually like dating. We weren't like an item, titled and everything. And I remember sitting on my front porch and I was crying and I told him, I was like, look, I was like, I want somebody who's going to be in this. I want somebody who's going to put in the same amount of effort that I'm going to put into this. And I said, if you can't do that, let me know so that I can go find somebody who can. Let me know. And I am very much, I did this. It's funny because I did the same thing with my ex. Like I told her, I was like, look, I was like, if this is not what you want, let me know. Because I'm not here to hold anybody else back from whatever it is that they want, whatever relationship, person, anything, like any dream, anything. I'm not here to hold these people back. All I want to do is sit, be great, love, be loved, care, be cared for. Like I want to do those things with all the all the reciprocity in the world. But I also need you to be in this. And I told him that. I said, listen, if you're not going to be in it, I don't want it. And here we are 2 years later. We've been through a lot over the last couple of years. But what I will say is that he is somebody who knows how to put in the work. We are both very flawed. Everybody in the world has a flaw. We all have flaws. We are not perfect in any way. And because of my trauma, a lot of the times I want to just be perfect and I also just want to fix shit, right? But when I go into this relationship, when I talk to this person, when we have conversations, when we are working on our lives separate and together, he also puts in the work. And that is something for me that was so important because I felt like I wasn't getting that from anybody else. Maybe I was getting it for a short time and then they had me and then they fumbled. Conversation I had with the bestie. And I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying that I'm perfect in any of these scenarios because I did shit that I wasn't supposed to do, just like they did shit that they weren't supposed to do. So for those of you guys who aren't watching the video, those were air quotes. That pause of air quotes. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna brag about. I'm gonna brag about my boyfriend who puts in the work, who shows up. And I show up too. We both show up. And I feel like that is something to be able to brag about. I don't know. That's just me. And last but not least, what I desire. And I desire that everyone finds the person or people for them. And I'm not talking about just in the romantic sense. I'm talking about in the platonic sense as well. For so long, I have been wanting to find a group of people who thought the same way I did, who understands the things that I'm going through and all of that. And I realized that I first had to become that person. I have to become the person that I want to be around. Because let's just be real, before I wasn't very pleasant. I was pleasant, but like I wasn't very pleasant, right? And I realized that a lot of times we don't sit back and think about what we're doing and what we're putting out into the universe and how that's coming back to us. So I just want everybody to be able to put out into the universe what it is that they want and be able to get that back. And I feel like that's so important when it comes down to my community, everybody else's community, like what it is that you're looking for, like be very specific. The energies of the universe are listening, but we are muddying it up with all of these things that we don't want, that we see other people doing, that we feel like we need. We're living up to the Joneses and doing all this craziness instead of really looking at what is going to make us happy. What is going to make Tay happy? What is going to make Jennifer happy? What is going to make Mark happy? What is it? And just like that time when I was in my NAT therapist's office and she was like, Tay, you need to love yourself. And I was like, I don't know how. And she looks at me and she goes, yeah, you do. I'm going to tell you. You know exactly what you need to be happy. You know exactly what you need. You know exactly what you want to be happy. What is stopping you from getting it? And within all of this, I want you to look and say, okay, who are the people in my life that embody the qualities that I want for myself? And go find those people. If just by listening to this podcast, you're like, you know what? I listen to Tay's podcast because she's always so positive. She's always talking about self-care. She's talking about growth, like all of that. Like, I definitely need all of that in my life. Wonderful. Listen to my podcast. All right. I listen to a podcast, even though I'm not really interested in the traditional type of relationship they have. I am interested in having the relationship that they have. So of course I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to be like, yes, what are the things that I can take away from this? And how can I find people in my life like that? Go after what it is that you want. And don't let anybody else tell you any different. You looking for the things that you want and getting the things that you want in life is not being selfish. Now, if you have to like step on people to do it, that's a little different. If you have to be malicious in any way, things like that, like, yeah, okay, that's a little different. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about wanting something and then going out and getting it. Do you want a better paying job? We can find that for you. Do you want to become an artist? We can do that too. Do you want to go back to school? Do that. There's so much that we can do for ourselves in this world that sometimes we feel like that we can't. And I'm here to tell you, you can. You just have to make a plan, work the plan. Make the plan, work the plan. And that's it. I am so excited to continue the rest of the self-care series. We are almost done. Next, we're going to be doing October, November, and December. And then after that, I'll go ahead and do like a 2024 roundup of, what I basically gained over the last, year and a half of healing and transforming. And then we'll go on about our regularly scheduled program. But until then, do your homework, make a plan, take some action. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for listening to Dear Tay, You Got This. If you liked this podcast episode and found it helpful, please subscribe today and share this episode with a friend. If you have any questions, comments, wins, or would like to be featured on this podcast, please call or text 330-552-7234 or email info@desirablephoenix.com. See you next week.